Samsaradava nalaliraloka Pranaya karuna gana ganatvam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasora Sena Romancha Kampa Shutaranga Vadyo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringarathan Mandiramarjanado Yukta Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringarathan Mandiramarjanado Yuktasya bhaktam saniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Chaturvida Shri Bhagavad Prasada Swadana Triptan Hari Bhaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Radhika Madhavayorabhara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamnam Pratikshanasvadanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Nikunjayono Rati Keli Siddhai Yayali Vir Yukti Rapekshaniya Tatratidaksha ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Sakshadaриtvena samastashatsre uktastatha bhayate vasarve Kinto praborya priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada nagati kutapi Jayam stuvam stasaya satri sadyam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nilamadava Radha Nilamadava Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
नमा ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रवक्ताचार्य स्कोन फाउंडरचार्य कृष्ण कृपा मूर्ति चरणारविंदे श्री भक्ति वेदांत शिल्पोपाद महाराज की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव विंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की जय। श्री रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। गंगा माई यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड श्री गोवर्धन की जय। गोप गोपीनाथ की जय। श्री धाम श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। अयोध्या धाम की जय। मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। धर्म क्षेत्र कुरुक्षेत्र ज्योति सतीरथ धाम की जय। संवेद भक्त बिंद की जय। युग धर्म हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। गौर निताई की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि। ऑल ग्लोरी टू संबल डिवोटीज हरे कृष्णा। All glories to Sambal devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to Sambal devotees Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Gaur Ganga Shri Prabhupada Maharaj ki jai. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlad Lad Daine. हिरण्यकाशी पूर्वशः श्रीलटङ्कानकालये इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा तो नरसिंहा पर तो नरसिंहा यदो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बाहे नरसिंहा हृदय नरसिंहा नरसिंहमुदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव कर कमल वरे नकाम अद्भुत श्रृंगा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमल वरे नकाम अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु केशव तीर्था नर हरि रूप जय जगदीश जय जगदीश जय जगदीश जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय भक्त प्रहलाद की जय प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुभक्ति पते देवी सत्यवती नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुभक्ति पते देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुभक्ति पते देवी सत्यवती नमो नमो नमः तुलसी के प्रियासी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ यही अभिलाषी तुलसी के न पियासी नमो नमः जी तुम्हारा शरणा लोवे सारा बाज पूरन होवे कृपाहु कोरी कोर तारे वृंदावन बासी कृपा कोरी कोर तारे वृंदावन बासी
Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha. Morayahi Abila Dilase Kunja Diyoang. Nayane Hari Basada Yugaro Parati. Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha. Nivedanadharo Saki Anugata Koro. Sevayadhikara Dija Kara Renjadasi. Sati Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha. Dina Krishna Dase Koi Yahi Jena Mora Hoven. Radha Govinda Preme Sada Jenavasi. Rasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha. Mahatya Kani Cha Kani Kani Padakshi Anti Padakshi Ne Pade Pade. Kani cha bapani brahma hate kani cha tani tani pasyanti padakshine pade pade. Kani kani cha bapani brahma hate kani cha tani tani pasyanti padakshine pade pade. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय बिंदे देवी जय बिंदे देवी जय बिंदे देवी जय बिंदे देवी जय तुलसी देवी आय प्रियाय के सोचा विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सदवताय नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देवी आय प्रियाय के सोचा विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सदवताय नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देवी आय प्रियाय के सोचा विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सदवताय नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देवी आय प्रियाय के सोचा विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सदवताय नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देवी आय प्रियाय के सोचा विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी श्रीमती तुलसी देवी महारानी वृंद देवी की गौर भक्त वृंद की गौर परमानंदे
O Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire to serve which is Sri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes charge of you has reached the fulfill. Bestow mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire that you shall always grant residence of Vrindavan. Bestow mercy upon him. Thus begin my meditation. Shall we behold the beautiful pastime Radha and Krishna? I beg you to make me a follower of powerful damsels of Braja. Please give me the pity to do devotional service and make me a own maid servant. Please by the fall and lowly self of Krishna praise. May I always swim in the love to Sri Radha and Govinda. Sri Chaitanya Shastra Sankita Keto Darpana Marjanam Prabha Mahakavati Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Sandrika Vikaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Hatipadam Purnamita Sadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Paranjayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nanam Kari Bhadan Nisya Sarvashakti Tatrasita Niyamisa
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namaha Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupatam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Sattvitam Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tam Suratur Bandhu Mahalavatir Gati Matsam Vasmadana Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shima Ratna Vidas Masi Masto Devo Prastavi Bihi Sevimanu Smaran Shima Vasara Saram Devam Siva Tata Tastita Nasan Venus Maya Gopir Gopinatak Sri Kanchana Orangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhe Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakarsad Masukalpa Riksha Vaksha Ritvesa Surabhira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Madhipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kanantam Aravenda Daitaksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Pantika Yanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vikrahasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastukoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manasomani Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasim Yavichintya Tatve Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagadanda Kotim Yashjakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Tabirya Eva Nityarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pramamyo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Pavavato Jagananda Koti Yukoti Swasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahman Niskalamanantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Jaigun Yatad Visaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sadvavalambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Sadmataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Leela Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sute Sutesu Tete Prabhavani Jaya Vitasya Yena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Sastistati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanurupam Abhyasya Chachestatesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Sriram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakastietu Yasambhutam Apitata Samapaitikaryat Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Deparchadev Hita Santaram Abhyupetya Dipayate Vivitahetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnutaya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Karna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalambya Param Samurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaikani Swasita Kalamata Vilambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kalaviseso Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Baswanya Tasma Sakaleshu Nijesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitat Pratatra Brahma Ya Esa Jagadanda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palavigam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignam Vinantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamam Bhumarudisas Chakala Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Surumurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapam Se Brahmadi Kita Patagava Testa Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Astindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhan Urupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdhati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Saja Pranayadi Bitte Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Sriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Drumabu Mischintamane Ganam Aitoim Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chirinandam Chutiparam Apitada Swadyabapicha Sayatra Siradi Bhisavidi Sirabi Byascha Sumahan Nimesa Adakyo Vavajatina Hiyatripisamaya Bhajye Svita Dvipam Tamaham Ihagolakam Ityam Vidantas Te Santakshiti Virachara Katipaye Shri Guru Vastika prayers, Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzed as that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 5, verse number 34. Anilo pi vikurvano na basoru balanvita sasarja rupatan matram jyoti lokashilochanam. Anila, air, api, also, vikurvana, being transformed, nabasa, sky, urubala anvita, extremely powerful, sasarja, created, rupa, form, tatmatram, sense perception, jyoti, electricity, lokasya, of the world, lochanam, light to see. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thereafter, the extremely powerful air, interacting with the sky, generated the form of sense perception, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light to see the world. Text 35. Anile nan vitam jyotir vikurvat paravikshitam adhatambo rasamayam kala mayam sayogata. Anilena, by the air, anvitam, interacted, jyoti, electricity, vikurvat, being transformed, paravikshitam, being glanced over by the Supreme, adhata, created, amba, rasamayam, water with taste, kala, of eternal time, maya amsa, an external energy, yogata, by a mixture. When electricity was surcharged in the air and was glanced over by the Supreme at that time, by a mixture of eternal time, external energy, there occurred the creation of water and taste. Text 36. Jyotisambo nusam stristam vikurvat brahma vikshitam mahim ganda gunam adat kala mayam sagugata. Jyotisa, electricity, amba, water, anusam sristam, thus created, vikurvat, due to transformation, Brahma, the Supreme, vikiksitam, so glanced over, mahim, the earth, ganda, smell, gunam, qualification, adat, was created, kala, eternal time, Maya, external energy. Amsa, partially. Yogata, by intermixture. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thereafter, the water produced from electricity was glanced over by the Supreme Personality Godhead and mixed with eternal time and external energy. Thus, it was transformed into earth, which is qualified primarily by smell. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. From the descriptions of the physical elements in the above verses, it is clear that in all stages, the glance of the Supreme is needed with the other additions and alterations. In every transformation, the last finishing touch is the glance of the Lord, who acts as a painter does when he mixes different colors to transform them into a particular color. When one element mixes with another, the number of its qualities increases. For example, the sky is the cause of air. The sky has only one quality, namely sound, but by the interaction of the sky with the glance of the Lord, mixed with eternal time and eternal nature, the air is produced, which has two qualities, sound and touch. Similarly, after the air is created, interaction of sky and air touched by time and the external energy of the Lord produces electricity. And after the interaction of electricity with air and sky mixed with time, external energy, and the Lord's glance over them, the water is produced. In the final stage of sky, there is one quality named sound. In the air, two qualities, sound and touch. In the electricity, three qualities, sound, touch, and form. In the water, four qualities, sound, touch, form, and taste. And in the last stage of physical development, the result is earth, which has all five qualities, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Although there are different qualities, although there are different mixtures of different materials, such mixtures do not take place automatically, just as a mixture of colors does not take place automatically without the touch of the living painter. The automatic system is factually activated by the glancing touch of the Lord. Living consciousness is the final word in all physical changes. This fact is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9.10 as follows: Maya dakshena prakriti, suyute sacharacharam, hetunane nikonteya jagat viparivartate. The conclusion is that the physical elements may work very wonderfully to the layman's eyes, but their workings actually take place under the supervision of the Lord. Those who can mark only the changes of the physical elements and cannot perceive the hidden hands of the Lord behind them are certainly less intelligent persons, although they may be advertised as great material scientists. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is real knowledge. Real knowledge always takes into consideration the cause, the original cause of everything. Now, there are two types of causes. There's the material cause and the faraway cause. Just like when in the Bhagavad Gita is a very interesting verse. Let's see which verse it is, 13th chapter. And it says that Krishna says in 13th chapter, 13th verse, he says, I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal, Brahman, the spirit, the beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. That's a very interesting verse. And then it says, everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads, and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the supersoul exists, pervading everything. The supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses, meaning he doesn't have material senses, he has transcendental senses. He is unattached. Although he is the maintainer of all living beings, he transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Okay, so this is what you would call very special knowledge. And it's leading to text 21, which says, nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Okay, so when it says that nature is the cause of all material causes and effects, that's not all there is. There's the faraway cause also, or the cause behind everything else. So therefore, Krishna says, Maya daksena pakriti suyate satcharacharam hetunanena konteya jagat viparivartate. 9th chapter, 10th verse, where he's saying that the physical elements may work very wonderfully to the layman's eyes, but their workings actually take place under the supervision of the Lord. Those who can mark only the changes of the physical elements and cannot perceive the hidden hands of the Lord behind them are certainly less intelligent persons, although they may be advertised as great material scientists. This is a very significant statement, and it's corroborated by the Bhagavad Gita itself. So, in the purport to chapter 13, text 21, it says, the different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that, in this body or that body, in this type of body or another type of body. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body, and not to himself as he is, meaning not to the soul. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Nandamaya Bhyasat, the nature of the soul and in the spiritual world is to always be increasingly happy, not diminishingly happy, but always increasing happiness. Because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. In the spiritual world, there's no such thing. What do you mean, no such thing? No such thing as trying to dominate some part of the creation or anything that is belonging to Krishna. The spiritual world is pure, but in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desire. Now the sum total, body and instrument senses, are offered by material nature, and as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. Now, in other words, as long as we're under the influence of the laws of karma and the fact that in the previous life we engaged in good and bad karma, so it's a mixed bag, and also at the moment of death we still had unfinished desires. So therefore, that forces us under the influence of the modes of material nature to take another body. And what's going to happen to that body is already predetermined by the previous karma, and also now the new karma that's going to be created by the unfinished desires that awaken in puberty. When a girl and boy reach puberty, the desires that were unfinished in a previous life are awakened in their mind. Sometimes it's very overwhelming for us. So, therefore, there's a lot of predestination, or there's a lot of forces acting on us every time we take birth. Therefore, if there's a way to stop that, that's like one of the greatest benedictions we can have. And there is a way to stop that. It's by surrendering to Krishna and following Krishna's advice, especially chanting Hare Krishna. At that point, gradually, the force of previous karma becomes stopped, especially at the moment of initiation. Now we're free to engage in devotional service. If we fall down from devotional service, the karma comes back. If we continue in devotional service, and especially here every day, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, gradually all that karma is not held in limbo, but it's destroyed. The destruction of it is through regular hearing and chanting and following the regulative principles. An initiation is simply put on hold. If it's not put on hold, we cannot engage in devotional service. It must be either stopped or eliminated for someone to engage in devotional service, because devotional service is on the level of Krishna. What is that level? Being free from the influences of the modes of nature, being free due to the influence of time, being free of our previous karma. Now, we're not completely free because it's put on hold, but we do gradually become completely free by the process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Okay? Now, this is there might be people that explain this in a little different way, but this is what I've understood by reading Prabhupada's books. Because oftentimes it's said, well, when you get initiated, all your karma is eliminated. It's not exactly a fact, because Prabhupada has said in other places, if you leave Krishna consciousness, it comes back. That means that it's put on hold. Without it being put on hold, as I said, you cannot begin devotional service. Right? Okay, so here it says, according to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters, meaning you get different types of bodies. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters, and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. So none of this is the fault of Krishna. If you get born to be a cockroach, or if you get born to be a rat, or a dog, or a cat, it's our own fault, right? We cannot blame it on Krishna, because in order to have love, Krishna has endowed every living entity with limited free will. If we use the free will correctly, then we can become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. If we misuse it, we stay in the cycle of birth and death. Why? Because of our original, let's call it original sin. What is the original sin? It's being attracted by material nature and walking away from Krishna, and desiring to gain control over some part of material nature and exploiting it for our own sense gratification. So this sense gratification is the major disease of living entities. It's a disease. It's worse than COVID. It's worse than so many other things, because it's what's keeping us in the material world. And sense gratification is what is emphasized in modern education. It seems to be the only goal that is spoken about through subtle and overt ways of teaching. So the subtle way of teaching is that, well, there's, we can't prove that God exists. We can't prove that God doesn't exist. That's what they say. And then there are others that say, no, we know for sure God doesn't exist because there's evil in the world. Okay, that's another way of looking at it, right? But both ways, the existence of God is put into doubt. And then secondly, we're told, as we heard the other day, Jean-Paul Sartre and the existentialist philosophers, that there's no God. And then we're also told that when you die, there's nothing. There's no being held responsible. There's no karma. There's no rebirth. It's all fantasy. And then we're told that everything is relative. There are no absolutes. And we go down the line with all these false statements that are subtly and overtly presented to a young, mushy brain that's trying to figure out who they are and what is their purpose in life. So eventually, that only purpose is you live only once. There's no spiritual world. When you die, it's all over. Therefore, the only thing that makes sense is sense gratification as much as possible. And for that, you need money. And you can get money in two ways, either legally or illegally. A lot of people choose to do it illegally nowadays. They're selling marijuana, they're selling fentanyl, they're selling this. They're businessmen, but their business is selling things that are self-destructive and oftentimes illegal. There are legal drugs also. Even the legal drugs, if you sell them, like the benzodiazepines and things like that, you can be arrested, even though they're legal, because they're usually under prescription. So you have to make a false prescription, or you have to go and steal them, and then you sell them. So this is going on. Or you import them illegally from China. China is one of the biggest producers of all these illegal drugs, legal and illegal drugs. So here we see, this is a dilemma. And the most formative years in the child's life, which is between 15 and 20, they're presented with all these false ideas that convinces them that they should engage in sense gratification. If they don't, they're missing the real life, the so-called enjoyment of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals. Okay, so now it says, according to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters, meaning various bodies. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. So none of this is the fault of Krishna. Man proposes, God disposes. Right? Therefore, you have to be careful what you desire. And if you're in an atmosphere where the desire for sense gratification is glorified, you just follow the lemmings. Lemmings are animals that if one lemming jumps over a cliff, all the others follow. See? So if one person looks like they're successful by having more and more sense gratification and money and material possessions and things like that, all the lemmings follow. They think, I got to do like that, because that person looks like they're really happy, but they're not happy. And that is the ignorance, is to believe that they're actually happy. But actually, if you study their lives, you see that they're not happy. They're always dealing with some problem or another, and eventually they're self-destructive. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he or she comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. As soon as we have a material body, we're going to be controlled by the modes of material nature, which are supernatural powers, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And we're going to be controlled by time, and we're going to be controlled by lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, enviousness. And we're going to be controlled by laws, laws of society, as well as the laws of material nature. So there's two sets of laws that are controlling us, And we're going to be controlled by false ideas that are placed into a mind through modern education, through reading books, through watching movies, through associating with materialistic people. Okay, so at that time, when one acts according to the laws of nature, meaning when we identify with the body, which is acting according to the laws of material nature, the living entity has no power to change that law. We're stuck. It's a prison of ignorance. Right? Ignorance is powerful in the world today, and it's imprisoning people. It's making them work like donkeys, day and night. Look what happened in India with this outsourcing. All of a sudden, instead of going to sleep early and waking up early, they're staying up all night working. You see? The complete opposite of what you're supposed to do. It completely disjuncts, it completely destroys any possibility of making spiritual advancement. They're staying up in those hours that you should be asleep, and they're working through those hours that are most propitious for making spiritual advancement. You see how things are arranged by Maya to take us away from Krishna. But people think, oh, this is a great blessing. Now I'm making more money. Yeah, but and a lot of those people on their way home after, like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning when they finished work, they stop in a bar now. They have a lot of bars. Like you go to Mumbai. There's a lot of bars in Mumbai now, right? They stop in the bar and have some drinks before they go take rest, right? And they sleep through the day, and they wake up to go to work at night. They go to work at 8 o'clock. Now, in New York City, this has been going on for years, for many, many years. There are two types of cultures there. There's the day culture and the night culture. So when the day culture comes to an end, and people go home, and then they're going to sleep and eat and engage in sense gratification and sleep, and then wake up next morning and go to work, a whole new set of people come out to the nightclubs and on the streets, and they're up all night long. You go to New York, it's 24 hours. It's not. There's no nighttime there, especially in downtown Manhattan and places like that. There's a whole new set of people that live at night. See, and they're on Broadway and other places, and they're engaging in drugs and sex and crime and cheating people and things like that. It's a dangerous thing at night. Okay, so at that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of the dog, he must act like a dog. He or she must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the super soul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad. 3.1.1 as follows. Dwa Suparna Sayuja Sakaya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul and in all circumstances is present as the supersoul or Paramatma. Okay, that's the bad news. Now the good news. Purusha prakritisto hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunai karanam gunasangasya sadasad yoni janmasu. This is text 1322. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Prabhupada writes, this verse is very important for understanding of how the living entity transmigrates from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he or she is captivated by this false manifestation, he or she has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his or her desire to lord it over material nature, he or she is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. This is so true. It's unbelievable how Prabhupada can nail it so perfectly, because he's a pure devotee, because he's an elevated soul, because he's in direct connection with Krishna through hearing and chanting and engaging in devotional service. How he is put in such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position that is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another, because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the science of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long-cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. This is the good news. But there's a caveat. The caveat is a warning. It can only be done in the association of devotees. You cannot do this in the association of karmis. Why? Because the karmis are completely addicted to sense gratification. So the more we associate, so what you can do is, let's say you have a chart and it's 24 hours. You should chart out how many hours you're associating with karmis and how many hours you're associating with devotees. And you should see over time which one of those associations is more important. I can guarantee you the association with karmis will be greater. The more you become entangled in trying to dominate material nature, that is, working to make money to buy gadgets and things that you don't really need, but you're attracted to buying them by propaganda, or which is called in another way advertisements, but it's actually propaganda. You need this. You need this chair that goes zzz and makes your legs go up. And then it goes zzz and then your legs go down. You need that chair. See? And you need this supplement. Definitely you need this supplement, or you need this instrument. You put it on your stomach and it rips you, which means it doesn't kill you. It makes your abs very strong and you lose weight, And it's scientifically proven because it's used by the United States government for its soldiers, so they have these ripped abs, right? And you see this guy, and this machine's going, and he's going like that, and little by little he's losing the fat in his stomach, and it's becoming ripped. Ripped means, you have these furrows of muscle, right? This is all nonsense, right? But people buy that thing. They see the advertisement over and over and again, either on the internet or on the television or in the newspapers. They buy it. Right? They think, I gotta have ripped abs. Right? So this is going on a major level all over the place. Advertisement or propaganda for things you don't really need. And people are working hard to get the money to buy those things. Okay, so the good news is, but he or she has to change this conception. What's the conception? The material conception of life. I need this thing, that thing for sense gratification. If I don't get it, then I will not have the sense gratification that I want. And what is the goal of life? Sense gratification. That's what's pushing the whole thing. If you're missing in sense gratification, then woe is me. I'm plain Jane. My life is really boring. I don't have all that glamour that Kim Kardashian has, and Miley Cyrus, and Jennifer Lopez, and all these people. They're enjoying life so much. They have big houses and all these cars, and they have all this clothes and things like that. I got to be like that. No, you don't have to be like that. Those people are going to hell. They're leading you to hell, not to Vaikuntha, right? But we are tricked because they have nice teeth and nice hair and nice clothes and nice earrings and nice nails and all artificial stuff. A nice face because they had plastic surgery. They love plastic surgery. They love it because it reshapes their face and it reshapes their body also. Anyway, we see the men want to be ripped and the women want to have this a special what you would call Cleopatra look, if you know what I mean. It's all nonsense, but it's all artificial. It's all plastic. It's all done artificially. Okay, so then we see that how this change of conception can be affected, but it's only by hearing from authoritative sources. So you should map out in your chart how much you're hearing from nonsense people, like teachers in school, philosophers, scientists, and so forth, and how much you're hearing from bona fide sources. If you're hearing from the bona fide sources, this change of conception will be affected. And if you're hearing from the nonsense people, you'll get shortchanged, right? So shortchanged means you get fooled into thinking that sense gratification is the goal of life. Okay, so then here we see that nothing can happen without the glance of the Lord. In other words, you can put together the elements, but without the glance of the Lord, they don't connect. And so you don't have this progressive development of, in other words, sound and touch and form and so forth, taste, etc., and smell. You won't have it won't evolve. The senses will not be developed. It has to have the touch of Krishna, and that touch is subtle. It's simply Krishna by glancing on these elements that they coalesce and go progressively until you have earth, which has all the five sensory perceptions. So this is the process of material creation, and it keeps going. There's more to it, but this is the fundamental part of it, and then the rest is combinations that go on. Okay, so we'll stop right there. So Prabhupada says, the automatic system is factually activated by the glancing touch of the Lord. So the Lord doesn't physically touch, he simply touches by his glance, and then these miraculous things happen. These elements coalesce, or they interact, and they produce new sensations until you have hearing and seeing and touching and tasting and smelling. Okay, those are called the ton mantras. The hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, smelling are the ton mantras, and the combination of those things are what basically keep people in the material world, because they can enjoy some sense gratification with the help of these different sentient experiences. So, are there any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So about this karmas and then
Did you say so hum?
not so.
So no, you said so okay. I thought you said so hum. I thought you were going to give me a Mayavad explanation. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, we're talking about the karmas and the today's
Talking about what?
about the karma, and then people are suffering because of their past karmas and all those things.
Oh no, sometimes they can be enjoying also, right?
Yeah.
But that enjoying is the enemy of the person. But go ahead.
So today's world actually, like everybody, it just like give a little bit analogy, like a stream, and the whole stream of the river, or suppose going in one direction, in one flow.
Yes, sense gratification.
Yeah, it's kind of sense gratification. So to go against that, it's really either you need a very deterministic, or you need somebody's help.
Always remember, impossible is not a word in the devotee's dictionary. Yeah, it's impossible for most people, that's right, because they have too many false ideas in the mind. But if you regularly hear, gradually, one by one, those false ideas are going to be dissipated, they're going to be destroyed, and you're going to replace them with real knowledge. The knowledge people are getting today is not knowledge, it's ignorance. And because of that, it entraps them in the cycle of birth and death. It keeps them in the cycle of birth and death. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm trying to compare with this. So river flows in one direction. So it's by its nature of, nobody is driving it through. It's not going in either particular direction. It doesn't go reverse or something. It's always go in one direction. So different yugas also, we have people are driving through a specific direction, right? As Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. Now, but we are saying that, okay, this change, that change. So there must be something who driving in this particular direction, everybody, because it doesn't change overnight, right?
Okay, but that's, what are you saying? It's impossible to be Krishna conscious in this age because
No, I'm not saying
the river is going in one direction only. That's what you're trying to say. But
no, it's very hard. So a lot of people, but unless you have some help from
if
someone.
Prabhupada believed that, he would never have come to the United States, which is where the river is the current is the strongest. So he would not have come, and he wouldn't have gone to to the Bowery, the lowest place in the United States, was the worst place to go to try and convince people to be Krishna conscious. And he would not have made disciples out of homosexuals, prostitutes, drug addicts, and so forth. But those were the first people that became devotees. They were the first people that became devotees. But he was able to purify them, and they were able to expand the movement. Like, for example, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was living in a hippie community in Northern California, and he was naked, sitting on a branch of a tree, when his friend Shyam Sundar, who had a different name at that time, came to see him to tell him about Prabhupada in San Francisco. And he decided, to get down out of the tree, put on some clothes, and go to San Francisco to see this sannyasi that came from India that people were talking about. And what happened? He became a devotee, and a very great devotee. But he was living naked in a tree. Imagine that, right? And I'm not making this up. It's a fact. And he was why was he in the tree? Why was he naked? Because he was taking LSD, right? And he was able to convince him to become a pure devotee. Very interesting. So Prabhupada turned the current. So we should know that it's possible, right? But if we think, oh, it's impossible, everybody else is in Maya, I may as well just go with the flow. Join the party, going to hell. No, you have a chance to get out, right? Without being out, even in the material world, even though all around you everyone is in Maya, you can be Krishna conscious, as long as you are hearing and chanting on a regular basis. So that's what it says. The change can be affected by hearing from bona fide sources instead of hearing from the unbona fide sources. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with having alternate careers. Why do you have to have a career in IT? You can be a horticulturalist. You can be a veterinarian. You can be a plumber. You can be an electrician. You can be a mechanic, and use all your talents in Krishna consciousness. You can be also a farmer. You can be a dairyman. You can be a banker that helps Krishna consciousness. So you can start a Krishna conscious bank. We need all those professions, to have a Krishna conscious community. So you don't have to. You can be an artist and draw wonderful, just like that one girl. She became an artist, and Prabhupada told her, you don't have to go to school to be an artist. You just keep practicing drawing Krishna. And Jadurani, that's what she did, and she became an excellent artist without going to art school, right? So, yeah, because if you do something to please Krishna, then Krishna will help you and give you the knowledge by which you can excel in that particular art to please him. It could be music, it could be art, it could be sculpture. We had some very good sculptors also in Krishna consciousness, and they were making dioramas. Prabhupada told them to learn them how to make these dioramas. So there's one devotee named Bharadraj. He learned how to do it expertly. And then build temples. Well, some devotees became expert in how to build temples. The New Vrindavan temple is built by devotees. So they learned all these arts, not necessarily by going to school, but by practice. Practice makes perfect. Okay, so you can go to school also if you want to, but you don't want to get contaminated by. So you make your 24 hours a day chart of what you're hearing the most. Right? So if it turns out that you're hearing most from the karmis, that's a problem. You got to balance it off. But if you don't balance it off, eventually the karmis take over, right? And you're listening to the news, you're reading articles about this nonsense or that nonsense, and you're learning how, spending a whole lifetime trying to make a career in this thing or that thing, and you don't have any time for Krishna consciousness. That's the final result. There's no time. And that's a big, serious problem. Any other questions? Okay, therefore, we will now have Guru Puja. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandho Moi Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Bai E Baba Toriya Jai
Janara Prasade Vai Devavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Kariya Kya
Guru Mukha Vakya Chittite Goriya Kya
Arana Khori Ho Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa
Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate Vidhi Gai Jaha Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Punyavadi Paschatya Desatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagachasta Tara Satara Shri Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Buddhaya Krishna Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru
The
Lotus feet
of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge.
He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic preeminence, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread through all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani ki jai.